I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Dietrich. Jordan Rodelli is on vacation, but Andrew Kuo does not take days off, even in a reborn New York City. He takes time out of his day to record influential pods. Mr. Kuo, how are you today?
I'm doing pretty amazing, man. Like, I just beamed into the Freeze Art Fair from my teleportation device and beamed back. Since I'm not using, like, my bathtub for showering anymore, now it's a teleportation zone.
There's a lot going on there. I'm going to leave it to our listeners to digest and interpret what they just heard. Let's go back to Freeze for a second. It is Freeze week in New York. Can you feel it? Friend of the pod, Caitlin Phillips, said she felt evil in the air.
This is when a lot of Bond villain art dealers descend on our humble city to make that crypto, Ben.
And by descend on our city, you mean go from their West Village homes over to the Freeze Art Fair.
Yeah, we're talking over the bridge. They're kind of bridge and tunneling it. Either whether it be from Westchester or now Williamsburg, Greenpoint, far away places.
You're not afraid to say it. The art dealers are everywhere. They're in our midst.
For the listeners who don't know, Freeze is a magazine first and foremost, and they started an art fair a long time ago, maybe a decade or so ago. And it was a big deal. It was like the glossiest, fanciest art fair on the scene, with like the Armory Art Fair, the Independent, the Basels. Freeze is like a pretty top tier event. And, it was canceled last year, obviously. And they had some hiccups. One year was too hot. They had to give people their money back because no one wants to buy artworks when it's sweltering inside a convention center. So this year they're having an abbreviated Freeze inside the Shed in Hudson Yards, which is like a humble place where a lot of people really a lot of day ones go to live.
The Shed at Hudson Yards.
Hudson Yards is a really affordable place where locals can do their thing and create a community.
I remember, back in the 90s, we'd all go to Hudson Yards. We'd all look at the expensive boutiques. We'd all check out the abandoned train yards. Mm-hmm. But Freeze, for those who don't know, I believe, and I'm a novice here in this art world, started in UK, right? Mm-hmm. And then it was in Randall's Island, I believe, here. One of those islands.
Yeah, I forget. There was one in Randall's Island, and there was a couple in Roosevelt Island, I believe.
Yeah. I'm not that good I gotta say, I'm not that great on the islands. There's Randall's, there's Roosevelt. Rikers I'm familiar with. Deeply familiar with.
And our favorite island, Dion Waiters Island. Yeah, the island.
Chillin Island, that's a good one as well.
Shout out to our friends at Chillin Island. But I think they do it because there's not really that many spaces in New York. There's Javits. It's more empty now, but the Freeze Art Fair is presented as this regal thing that's breathy, airy kind of tent with natural light streaming through, and it's cool, man. There's a lot of predictable hate towards these art fairs, and there's less enthusiasm, but I think they're kind of great. I don't know. It's
I'm going to square with you here, Andrew.
Go for it.
I really liked Freeze.
Yeah, it's awesome, right?
I thought it was a good time because primarily you got to take boats. So living in Brooklyn, I would take a boat over to 33rd, 4th, 34th Street, the pier over there, take another boat, and then go up to whatever infernal island it was on. So you'd cover this huge swath of the city by boat back, and you never get to do that. It felt like you were traipsing around an archipelago or whatever they're called. Just boating around New York was such a luxury. And it also took such a long time to get up there. So you would hang out all day, and they would open this backyard area, and on a nice day, they had food from Roberta's Pizza, and they were selling wine, and they had, these benches and picnic tables. So you kind of hang out all day and have some pizza and wine, and then you would take the boat ride back at the end of the night as it was getting dark. It was a kind of beautiful scene.
With like a $100,000 painting under your arm, like a normal person.
Ooh, lost my painting on the boat. A wave rocked me, and I let my Andrew Quo fly off.
Wait a second. Where's my Quo painting that I bought? It was right here. Oh, that's the last time I've had wine.
Oh, I used it to wipe up some wine. And wine.
I think it's really easy, especially with something like the idea of art, which is like wrapped in purity, right? It's easy to think that any sort of monetary transaction makes stuff evil, but I'm with you, man. These art fairs are like for a specific audience, and it's easy for people like me and you to be interlopers and just like have a wine or a slice of Roberta's Pizza. It's kind of nice, man, being surrounded by cool artworks. I am not on the market to buy anything, but it's nice to see it, right? And then I'll just like listen to somebody play wedding tunes in a yard full of brick oven pizza.
Yeah, I mean, resisting your clarion call for the art versus commerce conversation, I'm just going to say, if you said there was no art fair, but you can take 2 boat rides and we'll eat pizza and wine outside an island, I would also be down for that. So just to clarify, I like the spectacle.
Too close
is
to
great.
a barbecue. Yeah. Too close to grill mastering, that for me. I'm not taking a boat just for someone to be like, I'll handle the pizza cooking.
Okay, but what about 2 boats? See, that's the appeal. The double boat, I think, is really what makes it great.
Yeah, going back and forth. You can wave to people going.
No, you're on like
direction.
4 boat rides.
Yeah. Did Lil Yachty blow a 3-1 lead? What happened to Lil Yachty? Little boat. Because
speaking of little boats.
Yeah, because I remember I was watching that HBO documentary series, and there was an Ana Delvey story about her being on the frying pan, and I think that was it. And I remember I went to a little boat party on that little boat, and that was kind of like, I wonder if that's all gonna come back. It's back already, right? Like, are people gallivanting on docked boats already?
I feel like boats are one thing that never really went away.
Like people through the pandemic.
Yeah, because I feel like if you have enough money to have a boat of your own at least, or to rent a boat, that was like we can get a bunch of people on a boat, some salty breezes and whatnot. We can escape humanity. Who was the record company mogul that put the like drone shot of his massive boat? Who's that? David Geffen, right?
Oh Jesus, yeah.
But yeah, I think boats and any sort of way to seclude yourself from the filthy, coughing masses has been here to stay, and will be here to stay.
Yeah. Remember when the Team USA in the Olympics wouldn't mingle with the commoners like the other superior athletes, and they had to get a boat, and I heard it was a wild scene on that boat. Still waiting for those stories, but one can imagine it was a Michael Beasley-esque affair.
Yeah, that would be a good boat. But yeah, Little Yachty, see, the thing is he still like a beloved figure amongst the Zoomer cohort, or are they over him? I don't know.
I really think he blew the 3-1 lead. I don't think he's put out great records. I think I kind of watched him on some old like sneaker YouTubes where he goes shopping for shoes. He's like a charming kid, a man now, but he's probably old enough to have a wine on an island. But I think he didn't really hit it like Uzi did, right?
Well, my understanding of Yachty's career was that he was never really a rapper or anything like that, and he just kind of wanted to be
never stopped anybody.
No, for sure, but he was part of like the ASAP crew. That he was just kind of a creative, cool kid that wanted to be part of that circle. And I don't mean this in a fanboy way, but he just was like, yeah, this is cool, I want to be a part of this world, and entered that way, and then started making some records. I don't know that he ever viewed it as, this is going to be my career. And to your point before, that's never stopped people at other times. oh, you make a rap song and people will pay you to do it, and you can foresee yourself making albums and continuing this path, then like why stop? But I actually don't know if he ever really had the ability of, say, like a Cardi or a Lil Uzi or even like a A$AP Rocky. And I'm bringing them all together because I remember there was a DKNY party that I was covering, and they were all together kind of as a crew. And so these guys all know each other, and we're all in like the exact sort of same circle, hanging out and chilling. And I think Yachty was kind of the non-rapper out of that little quartet, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I love that discussion, like who is the better interesting person, right? Because being an interesting person is also a skill. Sometimes it coincides with being a great musician, like Billie Eilish does a great job of being both an amazing celebrity and an amazing musician. Yachty, I think, had so much promise. Like when Lil Boat came out, God, 2016, that's wild. That's like 5 years ago. But it's not like 5 years ago. It was 5 years ago. And, he had jams, and, we rushed to see him rap. But then after that album came out, I was like, okay, maybe he's just like a superstar, which is probably a harder thing to pull off than making songs. And he got there, but he didn't quite get there like A$AP did, right? Who kind of didn't really put out jams after Yams died. Like, that was the end of A$AP's interesting rap career, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you losing Yams, and then they had DJ Snacks, who also died. Who him and Yams were the ones who started like Not a Toy, and were definitely kind of like the humor and kind of weirdness behind that whole crew.
Yes,
So,
yeah, right.
I mean, I think Rocky is a pretty good rapper. I've liked a lot of his music, but the interesting element, I think, is what vanished with Yams, like that edge of quirkiness or humor that went along with, him being like incredibly handsome, having a good voice, being stylish, being like a star, all these like hallmarks of being a rap like icon were sort of hollow without Yams providing that like little bit of, I don't know if it's like levity or gravity or something else to it that made it seem less processed.
Yeah, it was more unique. I thought it came from a real nerdy place. Like his musical tastes were distinct, and like all music producers, like if you get Dr. Dre or Timbaland into YouTube, you're like, oh, you guys are fucking nerds. It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, Yams was cool, but he was a rap nerd, just like Jay Scott was. And
Yep.
Yams 100% was someone who would have been listening to like Stretch and Bobbito and was steeped in like Southern rap, East Coast rap, West Coast rap, like the lore and the minutia that make those reference points.
Drum machine, message boards,
Interesting.
all that. Yeah.
Yams was amazing.
Yams was amazing. And it's funny, like the trajectory of A$AP, because, I think in the 90s it was a cliche to say like ballers wanted to be rappers and rappers wanted to be ballers. But as it kind of played out, as we're seeing with Travis Scott and Kanye, rappers want to be designers, man. And artists want to be designers. Artists want to be fashion designers. Like Sterling Ruby, a really successful painter, sculptor, ends up doing a bunch of fashion stuff after his like relationship with Raf Simons kind of crumbles, right? And he's got a level of respect there. Like, I always thought like during Fashion Week, that applause at the end of a show was like such a genuine, cool moment. I thought it was genuine, that like a lot of people kind of recognize the appreciation of a scene there. And there's not really that like call and response in every scene, especially sports. Jesus, you could be so good and like people would just like rip you like Paul George or something. But I thought that was something interesting, and musicians kind of gravitated less towards the rock and jock thing and more towards being like a fashion CEO, right?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, I don't know, the whole discussion of fashion and how it ties into music and rap, it's like, it's inseparable in all these ways. And I mean, even today, it's like, someone's like, jeans are back. Here's a photo of Rihanna wearing jeans and Biebs wearing jeans. Like, there it is. They've returned.
Guys, baggy sweatshirts. It's happening. A size too big for Justin Bieber is a size just right for us.
At long last, jeans.
Yeah. It's like when Cookies Hoops interns do not make small clothing items. It's a real signal to the world that no one should be wearing a small sweatshirt.
However, there
We
are
started.
limited amounts of smalls in recent sweatshirts, just as an FYI. Do not let that detract from Quo's heartfelt anti-small agenda. There's a few smalls.
This is not small man erasure. Totally. I mean, among the dozens of interns we have who are progressively getting less and less gruel from the same gruel pot, it's hard to keep track of everybody.
Well, and it's hard to keep them the same size.
Yo, listen,
So,
there's
an
small
intern-
interns, there's big interns.
Well, an intern who gets less and less gruel eventually may go down from a size medium to a size small, but the sweatshirt fits just as baggily.
Nice.
It's the way it works.
Have you been going to restaurants? Like, are you hitting the culinary scene like a maniac?
Yeah, I'm down for some indoor dining.
Yeah, I think it's time, right? Like, we're both fully vaxxed. I think they, your day one, Bill de Blasio, said, July 1st would be a complete reopening? And then your other boy, Andrew Cuomo, said, like, not so fast. I want to make it earlier. I'm like, whatever, guys. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I liked it. Then de Blasio countered by saying, no, you have to go eat inside of the restaurant tonight, right now.
Yeah.
Each one slightly more open than the last.
I've been seeing a lot of our homies getting that delicious crustacean tower at Balthazar. One of possibly the most influential restaurant ever. Did you catch wind of this McNally bullshit that happened yesterday?
Well, I know he's been posting.
Keith McNally.
Yeah, I know he's been posting. He's been getting not the bookseller.
I thought you said he's been posting and toasting. I was like,
Yeah,
yes.
he's been getting some posts up on the gram. So the one that I believe you're referring to is the
Which one?
Ghislaine Maxwell post, in which he said innocent until proven guilty. And honestly, that's how I feel about Hugh Grant and the so who am I to talk?
Right. At least he didn't go out on a limb and accuse the busy friend frivolously, who ends up having nothing to do with any murder. Woo! Who would ever go on that limb?
Ghislaine innocent.
She's just the busy girlfriend slash
I think
manager.
Whoever is investigating this case needs to take a long look at the people who surround her, who are always on the phone.
Yeah. I mean, Keith McNally, right? So he legendary restaurateur, Balthazar, used to do Odeon. I believe now it's his ex-wife's gig. Pastis, a restaurant that's pretty good, reopened recently in the West Side. And a few others that I'm forgetting right now. But legendary dude, really active on Instagram and writes quite a bit on there. And he's kind of like, he's a zagger, I would say. That's what I would call him. Like, if everyone's thinking one thing, he'll present the opposite and revel in the disagreement. And you know me, I really enjoy people like this. And it's not like the Tucker Carlson thing where he's like, I'm just asking questions. He states his opinions, which to me is like, interesting. I'm going to turn off Instagram now and not think about it anymore. But so yesterday he dropped this Ghislaine Maxwell bomb with something pretty, he knows what he's doing, right? Something pretty harmless. Was just like, hey guys, before we, assume anything, she's not been to trial yet. So technically she's not guilty. Insane trends everywhere. On the same week, his restaurants are reopening. So it's like, well done, Keith McNally. You are trending on all social platforms and everyone's naming all your restaurants.
I won't even go to Frenchette because it's made by people who studied under him in the kitchens of his delicious restaurants.
His kids must be ashamed of him. I mean, they might be. I don't know anything about his life, but well done by him, because I think his objective was to get some easy PR out there, and in probably 40 seconds it took to post a really beige statement like innocent until proven guilty, he got like pretty good publicity.
Was Maxwell even in the news cycle, or did he
No.
just?
No. He does the thing I do on Twitter, which is I think of things no one really cares about. It's just like back to the eating over garbage thing, and everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Just living my life, man."
Oh yeah, I don't really do that, but I respect it when you're scrolling through Twitter and it's all about the events of the day, and then someone's like, "What do you think about Jay-Z Volume 3?" You're like, "What? How did you just start talking about Jay-Z Volume 3, or like a movie from not 4 years ago?"
Yeah. In
You know what's
order
really
to
you know what's underrated? The
Little
Undoing.
Boat. Right. Guys, watching The Undoing for the first time, no spoilers. But like, someone has to start a trend, right? So there's always one. But Twitter's broken. I love Twitter. I think it sucks though, because I bumped into an old friend maybe before the pandemic, and they were like, "Yo, seriously though, what have you been up to for the last 5 years since I've seen you?" And the first thing that came to my mind was trying to think of good tweets, to be honest. And I was like, what a waste. But I really love this website, and I'm not going to downplay it because I think it's cool. But I think it's at a broken point right now, and I just want... Go ahead.
I put up about 12,000 tweets, and I would say, I don't know, probably 30, 40 of them have been pretty good.
Yo, it's like chasing that Twitter dragon, man. You're just looking for that one viral tweet. But, it's relevant to the news because Facebook decided to keep your boy DT off of social media for another 6 months. And it brought up the whole discussion of like, are these platforms publishers or are they media? And there's a big difference, right?
Well, there's also the legal ramifications of that as well, where you have an immunity that has existed for a long time. And I forget the exact law that allows this distinction, but it basically says if I put up something really foul on Twitter, it's my responsibility and it's not Twitter's. And now you have people from both parties who kind of are interested in challenging this idea, which I don't really agree with either, though.
Didn't that get to the Supreme Court recently? Am I making that up? That was like a landmark case, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's the same way when you look at, I don't know, whether it's anywhere that has user populated content, to say, okay, you can put restrictions in place to take those things down, but like if it exists there, are you liable or not?
Right. Interesting discussion, right? Because Twitter, the response, the left's, people who don't like Donald Trump's response would be like, Twitter's a private company, they can do whatever the hell they want. People who like Donald Trump is like, yeah, but people are doing whatever the hell they want except him. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I don't have to preside over this because it's pretty confusing. I think Twitter itself as a company does better when he's on there because he makes people fired up in this McNally way, and it's good for them. But I enjoy the experience without him because I think he's toxic. Whatever, right? Like what I think doesn't matter in the Twitter concept. But my experience can be edited on there.
Yeah. I mean, I see it both ways. I don't like the idea of, corporations who have sort of morphed into almost being a utility because of their popularity, being able to pick and choose, whose views are acceptable and whose aren't. At the same time, there's some content that just shouldn't be everywhere. We've watched like the Searching for Q doc, and you're like, you know what? I don't need to be on a website that's offering full freedom where like, do you want to put up child pornography? You can. Cool. We'll put up anything you like. And you're like, I don't want to be in that ecosystem. That's fucking gross.
Yeah, the HN people are like, we took a look at it and it's disgusting.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to be around that shit. I don't want my friends to be around that shit. I don't want my parents or my family member. Like, get out of here. That's revolting. at the same time, I also don't really like, you know, a tech baron saying, you know what, that view, I don't agree with that. Get him out of here. And you're like, cool. So what one major platform that you use, you can no longer use anymore. Although Donald Trump did try to, overthrow the government, strike against him.
Same shit, different day. Yeah, I mean, it's not tech barons. It's like our senators now, right? Like this is gone. It's like we know how these companies want to do it. Now it's up to like legislation and feedback from users. I wonder what Instagram thought of something like Keith McNally yesterday, who doesn't have a ton of followers, but the rage when I say Twitter is broken. I'm like, I always look for jokes to see the health of everything. If you meet your friend after a few years and they're like funny, I'm like, you seem to be doing well, man. I'm happy for you, If they're not funny, I'm like, what's wrong?
I'm miserable. I've just been working on my ad-libbing.
Yeah, it's just like, a ton of bad stuff has happened to me, but I can still keep a sense of humor. And I'm like, you're still the great person I knew before, And that's how I feel about Twitter. Like when this McNally thing went down, and it's hard to joke about it, but like Twitter's also a disgusting place and there's jokes everywhere, but no one jokes anymore. And I'm like, I miss the Heatles era, man. Like 4 or 5 years ago when people were making fun of like Steph Curry and we were doing like taking my talent in like the height of memedom. I miss those days because now it's just like cops everywhere. Cops on cops on cops. And it'll get better. And there's corners that are still funny. But I just hope we can get to a point where we're just not like called into action because of a restaurateur's Instagram post.
Yeah. I mean, this kind of goes into what we've been saying for a long time about, COVID being an accelerant. And, that narc culture, I think in general. Was given a big,
big boost Olivia Benson energy,
a big boost in the ass over the last year or so.
Yeah,
and those, I think, I forget who wrote the article, but it was about like pandemic addicts. It was just like,
oh, interesting, yeah, and, for sure.
And the article was sort of about people who were like, and whether you agree with it or not, it was about people who were like very liberal and who were like exceedingly cautious and how they just weren't willing to like give up like the safety protocols. And then people so mad at the article. I'm just like, there's got to be a joke here somewhere.
Yeah.
Everyone's just really mad. It was like the person writing the article. I'm like, I don't disagree. There are people who are on the far end of that bell curve, just as there are anti-maskers on the other side, which now includes me outside. But just that full bell curve, yes, there were extremists on both sides, but it just there was no humor. Everyone was just fucking mad.
I know, man, and like we can. Say we don't like police officers all day and all we do is act like them. And I do the same thing. I have to catch myself being like, well, I think the Knicks should do this. And I'm like, that's a cop-ass thought. They can do whatever the hell they want and I'll still love them. But it is a forum that pushes you that direction. And this is like the simple heist or the simple trick that Twitter utilizes. Everyone's like, well, they make it addictive. I'm like, no, they just make you angry. That's their whole thing. You make yourself angry on Twitter.
I mean, have you taken a few days off of Twitter because you're occupied with some other stuff and then you log back on and you're like, what the fuck are you idiots talking about? Just like you realized how this, the character of the day or these stories. And I mean, people are cognizant of this. They'll be like, so-and-so just got milkshake ducked. I'm like, ha, no one would understand this. And they're right.
Yeah.
You look at it, and if you've just logged off for a couple days, people are talking about things that are absolutely like impossible to comprehend at a glance. And I think that has an addictive quality as well, because that constant stream of information, you're in on the inside jokes. And when there are jokes, you get them right away. And when someone who's not active on Twitter sends you, a meme or something, it's like 2 weeks later. Like, do you see this? You're like, yeah, I saw it like 20 times, man. Like, I'm on Twitter. It's poisoning my brain, but I get to see these things first.
There was a point in my life where I could probably have a 2-hour discussion about Robert Smith versus Morrissey. and it would be intense. I'm like, okay, we're in minute 90. Now we're going to go into Morrissey's solo career versus The Cure post Wish, and like it was a whole thing, and I loved it because it was something that I cared about. And I see Twitter the same way. It is a subculture, right? The language of it, in itself is not. It's a newspaper, but
exactly, it's specific lingua franca that updates so quickly that it becomes like a morphine drip.
It's like you're not smart because you can do crossword puzzles fast. You're just good at crossword puzzles. So I think every smart person could figure out a way to solve a puzzle, but the speed demons like yourself who do so well on the New York Times crossword puzzles, it is a language that you have learned that you're getting better at, right? And you're communicating with the thing and with other people who are good at it. And Twitter's no different. Like, without talking about politicians we may or may not agree on, and there's politicians who use this in different ways, same with like restaurateurs and whatever. But when people get furious at politicians on Twitter, it's always something I remember, like 95% of them, like voters don't care. If they care, it might even be like, you Twitter people are insane. Do you know that? So whatever you're thinking, I'm the opposite of that. And there's a certain politician in New York now that's using that to his advantage. But like, it is a thing that's gameable throughout. And I think the more we jump at stuff, the more gameable it is.
I honestly don't understand people who interact with strangers on Twitter with either like odd cloying familiarity or like real hostility and like cursing at you. I just don't get it. You just said a Sixers opinion out like, well, fuck you. I'm just like, what is wrong with you, man?
Yeah.
I gotta say, I do not think I have said a hostile thing to a person on Twitter in years. I just don't do it. If I don't agree with you, I'll be like, I don't agree, or I'll say something differently. And if you're just hostile and insulting, I'll just not respond. Maybe you'll get muted. But it is so weird to me that people will just scream at random strangers. Like, what kind of behavior is that?
Yo, when strangers call me by my last name, which all of my friends do, like if I had grown 2 feet and had a pizza in my back pocket and rolled into Dime Square in Clandestino with Ivan there, you're there, Mills is there, Luch is there, all my homies, it's my cheers, and I look nothing like I did, you'd all call me by my last name because that's what you call me, even though I'm totally different post-COVID. But
well,
when
you're
people
6'6".
Exactly, and I've read a book, and
what the?
Yeah, it's inexplicable, man. I've read
wait.
words with my eyes.
You buried the lead. What book did you read?
Psych. I didn't grow 2 inches, and I didn't read a book. Are you kidding me?
No, that was a test, and you passed.
Yeah. Which book did I burn? Which is all of them. But like when people call me by my last name on Twitter, I'm like, yo, okay, that's fair, but yo, like you're not sitting in Clandestino right now.
Wow, you weren't with me shooting in the gym, shooting a shot at the bar.
A shot. You can have a beer or a shot, but not both.
And shots up in the gym.
But I still have faith in Twitter because I love it, and I don't think I'm not good at it, but I think like also a danger to get into is like being an activist against it, being like, y'all are being so and so. It's just like there's a lot of meta cop behavior.
I mean, I'm not even complaining about it. I think Twitter's fun. It's okay. I mean,
I still obsess over it. I'm like, would that make a good tweet? Nah.
Yeah, no, I think if you have a decent amount of followers and you say opinionated things, especially about sports or politics or whatever, you're just going to get a lot of negative feedback, because if someone who hates it, retweets it, then it goes to their audience or people who are negative. So you'll end up with a bunch of, say, Utah Jazz psychos insulting you on Twitter. I'm like, if you care about that kind of thing, you can just not tweet. Like the game is the game. You just can't let it bother you.
Yeah, exactly. It's the bullshit is baked in. Sort of like for years, the interns and on our personal accounts, we've been saying like, there's no need to shower as much. Like we're in this COVID era. You don't have to jump in a hot shower twice a day, maybe 3 times a day, like I used to in the summer. Now you can let it go for a little while.
I gotta ask you here. We've seen 2 articles recently about
Wow.
people stopping showering.
Wow.
The phrase "eating over the sink" has entered popular lexicon.
Shout out to Nomi Fry.
Is your culture becoming a costume?
Well, by tall culture that reads books with pizza in their back pocket, no. But my former culture, yeah, dude, my former culture is the coolest culture. Not showering for like 3 days on end, even after workouts.
Like
Eating
you
over.
were not showering and eating over the sink before it was cool.
Listen, I lived on Bedford Avenue. I was going to the trash bar. I saw the Yeah Yeah Yeahs at Mercury Lounge. Yeah, I was doing this. The original not showering was much better, trust me.
Yeah, the people who don't shower now, I'm like, are you even dirty? like, you're just at your house?
Yeah.
You haven't been out in these streets? You know, back in the day when we were all running around, sorry, I forgot the name of your favorite spot up there, Hudson Yards.
Oh, that's where all the
back when
day ones get real. Yeah,
we were running the mean streets of Hudson Yards back in the day. We were covered
Chopped
with
Cheeseville.
We were covered with chopped cheeses. We were covered with grime, getting pooped on by subway rats, getting pooped on by pizza pigeons. Did we shower? No, because
No one showers.
because we were real New Yorkers.
Yeah. We were showered with authenticity. But yeah, so these articles come out, and I'm just like, first, where are my royalties? Second, of course you don't have to shower that much. It feels good not to shower. I know I'm glowing. You can't see me right now, but I'm glowing. I haven't showered in 2 days, Ben.
You know, it's easy real to be opposed to showering coming out of the winter when they've been hiding inside. Let's see if
that's just
they're
a
really.
warm-up.
Let's see if they're really about that life. When it's August, you've got picnics, you've got dates, but it's August. You're sweating through your shirt.
You got
telling
grill
me you're
smoke
getting
up in your
home.
hair. Yeah.
Those briquettes have been blazing. You're gonna go to bed. You're gonna jump into your sheets without a shower. Nah, you got to be cut different to do that. You got to be built different.
Oh, that white
you know what?
claw exploded in your pocket? Well, it's just going to stay there on your
They're
skin.
not. They don't. They
indefinitely.
don't want that barbecue smoke.
No. That pizza grease seeped through onto your tuchus. Well, it's just going to stay there for 4 days.
Yeah, I don't buy a word of this. I don't shower anymore, says someone who's been inside from February until March. Come on.
Although we did do a summer of COVID, and I certainly got ripe, as they say in Chinese.
Dude, no one's questioning your dedication to not showering. I believe you. I trust you. I'm saying you're the not showering day one. I'm saying I don't trust these Johnny come not shower latelys.
You know, I ride on my bootleg Peloton. I get all sweaty. All you have to do is stand there for 20 minutes and you're not sweaty anymore. Done. No water was killed in this experiment.
It's like a shower but with air.
Pretty much.
It's called drying.
Yeah, you can dry clean your cookies sweatshirts, which you should do because you don't want to shrink them because small sweatshirts are not for good unless you're appropriating small culture. And the same thing with your body. You just let that shit air dry, man.
It is just wild to see the things that you invented.
Thank you.
And the things that you treasure now being just turned into lamestream talking points.
Like seventh wave ska.
Seriously, people are talking fourth wave?
We were on fourth wave years ago. This is some Mark Jackson running point guard. Joe Biden was in the White House. We had Matt Ox was a kid.
I gotta say though, it is nice to see, people back outside, restaurants opening, seventh wave ska returning. It's like seventh wave ska is healing.
It is. Ska in general is a really positive vibe, but don't dig too deep into the lyrics because they can sometimes be a little dark, a little powerful, a little.
But no, it is. It's nice though. Like sunny day, look outside. The sky is playing. The sun. It's seventh wave. The seventh wave is here.
Sorry, buddy. I'm already on to the eighth wave.
Fuck!
I left you behind like 10 minutes ago. I'm sorry. I'm an eighth wave homie, dude. Eighth wave ska boys.
No, if you're not listening to ninth wave ska, like you're basically still showering.
I'm not quite ready for the 10th wave, though. That's going to have to wait.
Let me tell you something that's back you probably don't know about. Jeans.
Oh, wait. Are jeans back? Have the streets declared jeans back?
I gotta say, the dovetailing of not showering in jeans is dangerous territory. It's kind of though might work within 12th wave ska.
We're all on our way to 420th everything, but I stopped wearing jeans maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Just because they were a little expensive, to be honest. And the cheap ones at like Uniqlo and stuff were a little stretchy. They shrank a little, but they were also too hot in the summer. I do like a jean, but also the jeans I was buying were fading so fast that they kind of ended up looking like these dorky, like I've been living in my jeans for years, which I have been. But I wanted the blue to stay more blue, you know what I mean?
How come you didn't go vintage?
What do you mean? Because those are already worn in. I don't want them worn in. I want them.
You
crispy.
want that crisp indigo look, that like that APC jeans fresh out where you like can't bend your knees.
Yeah, I wanted them starchy. I wanted the Crips style, like very very rich blue. So as soon as they got faded, I'm like, not Neil Young over here. I don't like classic rock. Buy records.
I rarely wear jeans, but now I have to because they're back.
Okay, what style of jeans though?
I have a nice pair of white jeans that I've been wearing.
Oh, that's different. White jeans are tight. I love those. They get dirty. They look good dirty. Do you do blue jeans?
I have not, but I'm going to because I think they're going to be really good with eating over the sink and 13th wave ska.
They're gonna. Ooh, there was one time I wore a pair of jeans every day for like the entire summer, and I hand washed them because I didn't want them to shrink. Let me tell you, that water was not pure. You do not want to drink that water.
Are people still into that sort of jeans denim nerd culture, or did that just fade out? Because I stopped wearing jeans for the most part and moved into the riding pants class, as I highly recommend. But there was that whole era when it was like Japanese denim, selvage, don't wash them. Is that still happening?
I don't know, because the Japanese influence on New York stuff kind of diminished. I used to have a denim nerd who insisted on washing his jeans while wearing them in the shower and letting them dry. It's like a whole fucking night, man. I was like, isn't that like 4 hours? He was like, yeah, it's like a couple movies. But brings me to another point. Shout out to A-Life, who closed up their last shop this week. They announced that they're closing the sneaker shop.
Did they say why they were closing?
I don't know. Full disclosure, those guys are my super homies, so I can't really I can just say positive things about them because I love them. But I think the reason why is because of COVID, right? And like the sneakers app is a beast. I don't know if it's hard to get these shoes anymore, right? Between secondhand reselling and shops that carry them firsthand and the online, how are you going to survive being a niche like kind of luxury sneaker store?
Right. Yeah, I don't know enough about the sneaker landscape, but all the things you mentioned would seem to make sense to me. A-Life was a really special place.
Hells yeah.
Great concerts with people like Drake and Nas and A$AP Rocky. I think Rocky did one too there. In the backyard. A lot of cool people worked there, like Stally and Dice.
Kunle, Iraq
Kunle.
Crew. Yeah.
Just overall, just a really important part of like downtown that went beyond just an exclusive, high-end, coveted sneaker spot.
They were one of the first old school heads to like take me in when I was like 19, 20. I would just go by the shop, and they found that I silkscreen stuff, and we just became super fast friends. I was silkscreening a ton of like bootlegs for them, and when Orchard Street was popping, remember there was A Life Gallery, there was Sound and Fury Records, there was Alleged Gallery, a block over on Ludlow. It was just like a whole thing. So I would go there every Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 6 before they closed, and go up to their little design shop and like figure out what we were going to do that night. It was like, I look back on it now and like, those are some really good years.
Well, the good times are back. It's 15th Wave Ska.
I'm already on to 17, so I don't know what you're talking about, man.
Owned again.
It's like chasing that ska dragon, Ben.
We forgot to mention A-Life also in the Cookies Hoops Classic.
They showed up for sure.
They showed up. They had a good team. Good
They had a
squad.
good team. They balled out.
Not quite good enough, but a very good team.
I mean, when you don't have an ex-Knicks player on your team, you're kind of looking up at the rim as opposed to down.
But yeah, shout out to A-Life for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Have you hit the vaccine wall yet?
In what way?
Are you planning on getting any more? Apparently, that's the vaccine wall, right? Like, you've had enough vaccines?
I've gotten 2. I'm 2 weeks beyond my second. I'm looking for my third, maybe fourth. Is there a 6th wave vaccine? The rumors are flying, man. Some people aren't even on one.
So, from my understanding, from what the media is telling us, if we can really believe them.
Wow.
But the era of mass vaccinations in the United States, at least, is over. The Javits Center, things like that. Because now it's so easy to get it. You don't need an appointment. You just show up. It's at Burger King. It's at Duane Reade.
It's at Burger King?
I'm just making things up.
Oh, okay. It's at CVS. CVS is doing walk-ins now.
But yes, you want to go get a jug of apple juice, get yourself a vax. Like it's very available, and basically the idea is to give it to anyone who wants it, conceivably at any possible time where they might be convinced into getting it, because there's a lot of people in America who don't have the vaccine and don't seem to want it.
Yeah, it's like because of their political leanings. And also, it's scary. There's some smart people that aren't DT supporters who are like, I just don't think it's been tested enough. And I'm like, that's fair too. People are just reasoning within the information that they have. So it sucks, but it doesn't look like we're going to get to whatever your version of herd immunity would be.
These are the things that you just kind of can't care about, right?
Oh,
I don't mean overall. Yes, if you're running the country, you should care about it. But I mean, me and you, like, all right, like if 30% of adult white males or whatever don't want to get the vaccine, I can't do anything about that. There's literally nothing I can do.
I cared a lot about my own personal behavior in getting this vaccine. I cared about my friends getting it, and then you're right. At a certain point, I think this is life's greatest challenge, right? It's just like, when do you let go of something? Like, I hope everyone gets this vaccine because I personally think it's safe and great, but I can't care at a certain point because I'm not like a policymaker. But all my friends seem to have gotten them.
I do care that that Joe Biden is apparently on the way to waiving the patents so that we can give people that secret sauce.
India, mostly. So
just give it to everyone, man. Like the lip service about, being one world and all in this together, going out the window when some people have the vax, like, that's not for me. Like, we gotta, like, come on. Like,
well, he's acting fast. Like, this India thing is pretty new, right? Like, there's intense, tragic second wave. Just started like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
So, and they have been manufacturing the vaccine that me and you have been into. So, like, it's not even that they have the blueprint, but they're legally not allowed to utilize it in certain ways. So the White House is like, let's just let them do whatever the fuck they want. Sorry, guys. Sorry, like Pfizer. Like, they can have this patent for this thing.
Right. I mean, just put the patent online. Let anyone who can make it in their bathtub crank out the vax. Like just get that to as many people on the planet as soon as humanly possible, and then we can move on.
Yeah, or don't punish them because we all have it. Or they all have it. It's like there's no legal recourse for them doing it. But
yeah, like it's all the same disease, man. It's all the same virus. It's all floating around. If it's alive somewhere and then it has a chance of coming back to bite us in the ass. And if you are Pfizer, I understand that your business model kind of relies on this evolving and perhaps making this a 6-month vaccine and as a cash cow for life. But you know what? Your agenda is not the same as the rest of the world.
And like shout out, I haven't done a deep dive into this, but like shout out to Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, and Moderna, who I don't think are fighting this at all either. And they came up with these vaccines. So like I am not mad at them. Their scientists produced this thing that I took desperately. I desperately wanted one of these vaccines. I didn't care which one. So like I'm not about to demonize them. It's just like this paperwork that just got in the way. Just get rid of this paperwork, and everyone should have more of a chance at this.
I mean, I'm not particularly demonizing them. I'm saying the right thing to do is, of course, to waive those patents and just be like, sorry, guys, this has to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Like whatever you want as a company doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because we're all in this together because it was a pandemic of like biblical proportions.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Sorry about the patent, my dude.
Some hyperbolic people on TV who I agree with in their hyperbole is they're like, Trump, who has taken the vaccine a long time ago, he got it right away, and Biden should come together, not physically, but Biden should say, yo, listen, Operation Warp Speed did a great job. And Trump should say, yo, listen, Joe Biden's first 100 days have been amazing. And then it would save maybe a couple hundred, maybe thousands, maybe 10,000 lives. And like the people with this hyperbolic statement are like, this is something we should just compromise on and do. And the people who believe in either of these guys will maybe accept this vaccine as a solution. But that's probably never going to happen.
Sure.
Like admitting like the Nets are good. I will never, ever, over my cold, dead Twitter hands.
I mean, while I understand this in theory, you know, Donald Trump taking the vaccine secretly and then not telling people to go get it, like, it's just another reason he's a bad human being. I mean, he's just a garbage, selfish loser. So like even putting him back on TV next to Biden, like just go away forever, my dude.
I don't even care about that. I just think that I agree with you. I don't like him. I don't like any of the things he did in his 4 years. Well, you know, he started this process. I mean, anybody would have started it, but like he was there. So I'm like, my hatred from him is
I'm pretty loath to give him an iota of credit.
This is the problem, right?
Other than that he threw a bunch of money at it, which ended up getting us a lot of vaccines fast. But I mean, their approach to COVID was absolutely disastrous, and they squandered countless billions everywhere, especially like Jared Kushner. I mean, they did an absolutely horrific job in every regard. So like, I don't even feel like having Biden say, all right, let's, you know, bury the hatchet and say Operation Warp Speed did good, so you can then tell your morons to go get the vaccine. Like, just fuck off.
And this is not, I mean, this is kind of what I was talking about with Twitter, right? It's like you cannot go back on your hatred towards Trump, even if it means just being like, I can not care about it for a second. Like, we can't do that because the people who refuse to take this vaccine are so mad at Biden for so many different reasons that they will refuse this treatment because they're just like, I can't give him any credit, and me taking it is credit to him.
See, I don't even get that. Like, to me, it's not even that. I
it's
don't think
political for sure.
But
I mean, most Republicans are not.
But they're not
taking
refusing. But they're not refusing to take the vaccine because of Biden.
Yeah, they are. I mean,
no.
Yeah, it's Trump supporters for sure.
No, that's true, but it's not because of Biden.
Well, it's someone who isn't Trump.
Well, it's that they've been
It's people who ridicule
anti-mask.
them.
They've been anti-shutdown. They've been COVID deniers. They've been COVID conspiracy theorists. They've been, they've been on Trump's side this whole time. So Biden doesn't have to do, like, they don't care about Biden. I mean, they don't like Biden. They voted against him. They like Trump. But it's not even that they're saying, well, Biden's making me take this vaccine. They've been anti-vax the whole time. They've been COVID deniers since COVID denier day ones.
Not all of them, but I mean, it's fair that a lot of them are. But this is what I'm saying. Like, Keith McNally is going to post something scandalous again very soon because he knows what reaction he's going to get and he's gaming it. This is all like kind of disappointing, but whatever. We have more information now, so more information will be disappointing. I find it to be disappointing when someone could really use the vaccine and decide not to take it because of a weird reason. Like,
I mean, I just don't see why you would engage in Donald Trump in any way, shape, or form. I mean, the guy literally denied that he lost the election. He tried to overthrow the government and potentially have senators and representatives murdered in the process. Like, to even engage with him in a little bit of good faith as if like two leaders coming together, to me, that's just outlandish. And especially if the end goal is just to convince his like cretinous followers that they should get the vaccine. Like, I just, to me, that's like this weird, like, the same way when you see like Obama next to George W. Bush and people say, see, this is what two leaders are supposed to be like. It's this like, I don't know, like Panglossian sort of like soft focused vision of the world that I just can't abide by.
I mean, we were just talking about this with Twitter, right? Like, if you call someone a cretinous follower, they're going to react in a way that isn't necessarily informed by logic or data. It's informed by anger. And people can game that response pretty easily, I think, either promoting a restaurant or promoting a health policy. And I am over it. I just think that people should not call each other names and try to fucking live for tomorrow, I mean, in a pandemic, in a situation, like you said, this is a biblical issue.
I'm in favor of everyone getting the vaccine. People have every opportunity to it. The ones who won't are not going to. And like, that's okay. As I said, I'm over caring about it. I'm not mad at them for not getting the vaccine. I just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to change my life because some people think that there's a microchip in it. And like,
right.
Look, especially now, we have to be out here because Bill Gates is single.
Am I too old for Melinda? I mean, too young for Melinda. Everyone's trying to take their shot. I mean, does Melinda enjoy... What wave of ska does Melinda enjoy is what I want to know. Because I have a chance. There's a chance.
17th wave?
Listen, I can drop my phone number to her and she could pick it up.
Do you think Melinda Gates... What kind of phone does she have? What is the Microsoft phone? I don't even know.
It's... Yeah, what's their brand? They tried it. It didn't quite work, but I forget. Isn't it crazy how like the richest people on earth can't buy a Coca-Cola that's better than the one you can get? It's like there's no better phone than the one you have in your hands right now, even though they're billionaires.
I like that, you get Melinda's number. You're like, here we go.
It's on.
Melinda Gates. It's on. It's like that green bubble pops up.
Oh. Wow.
Ooh, I don't know if I can do this. It's tough. It's tough. That green bubble, man. It's tough. I'm not going to get red notifications, delivered notifications. Can't send the same like little, exclamation points and ha-has on text. Like the rapport is really going to be diminished. I don't know. Like good luck with, the divorce and everything, Melinda.
I have a good friend who has that green bubble. Man, is he down on my ranks of friends just because of that green ass bubble?
And I know and apologize to our listeners who are in that green bubble world, but this is not the first time you've heard this. You this happens.
You've been given
honestly,
warning.
This is the honesty that you deserve. I'm not telling you go out there and get an iPhone. Use what you want, but just know, just know that green bubble is being looked at like a little pellet of barf. Little string of barf pellets. Your well thought out messages. Your heartfelt texts. Just little barf pellets.
Speaking of those, a lot of people are saying the NBA season was a string of a bunch of barf pellets too.
Segway king.
Thank you. The lack of showering really put me on my A game.
You live for the funk. You die.
A life.
All right, so let's ask this question: did the NBA season suck?
No, it was awesome, but it wasn't like the best. And I think our brains are still in trauma. So there wasn't good Twitter action. There wasn't exciting on-court shenanigans because we're all just kind of shell-shocked, right? Like, yo, your boy Fred VanVleet is just like a walking shell of himself.
Yeah, I think he called this the least pure season we've ever had, or some phraseology to that effect, referring to the amount of injuries, the amount of players who have sat out due to COVID protocols, the compacted schedule that requires players to get rested.
The Toronto Raptors have not been home for like most of this year,
Good
unless
point.
they go separately.
Yeah. And he has had the least pure, the most unshowered experience of all, because he's a member of the Raptors, as you said, who are playing out of Tampa Bay, which we always just keep forgetting.
Yeah, I always forget. And his beard must have a universe of microbes in it. It's like
Wait,
the
are
Amazon
they
forest.
still playing in Tampa, or are they back in Toronto now? I legitimately don't know.
I think they're still in Tampa. I think Canada still has their restrictions in place.
So
They're having a tough time up there. Yeah. We always do this, right? And I think it's like the cookies mantra to not fall into the trap of being like, you guys get paid millions of dollars. Why can't you deal with living out of a suitcase? These are like young men who are geniuses in the world and who have been going through something as traumatic as we have. So like, they're as lonely and frustrated and tired and sick of their homies as you are.
I don't know if the NBA has loosened their protocols for COVID. I would suspect they probably have not. And they also haven't publicized how many players have gotten vaccines. I would suspect it's quite a few at this point.
They recently said 4 people tested positive out of like the 400 plus this week. So that's not bad.
Right. I mean, there's like a constant drip drop.
Yep.
Where none this week and then 1 or 2. But I think I know Nurkic got his vaccine. I think LeBron did. I think. I could be wrong.
My friend Matt Murray thinks there's a conspiracy that LeBron actually has COVID, but they don't want to say it because his injury is so mysterious. High ankle sprain, whatever.
But what would the COVID part be?
I don't know, but I like all conspiracy theories, and I'm here for it. But
I just mean COVID
they don't want to publicize it.
I just mean COVID is like 8 days, 9 days.
It could be longer. Van Vliet suffered through a real bad one that he talked about. Some people bounce back, and there's a couple players who had trouble coming back. Like famously, the BMM says Tatum's not totally ready.
But we saw LeBron sprain his ankle.
Oh yeah, so the conspiracy would be it's not as bad as they think, and obviously a conspiracy theory, which I think are all entertaining and shouldn't be viewed with anger.
You know
Should
what?
be
You
viewed
know
with
what,
humor.
man?
Are you gonna get angry?
Furious. You know, we all indulge in it too much, but like something's wrong with this player. He's not mentally there. Is it a family thing? Does he have COVID? Is he injured? There's like so much weird speculation about the physical and mental state of athletes. It feels gross. I don't like it.
I'm okay with it, and I know what you mean. That's fair, but remember, we have athletes who have begged us to think bigger and not necessarily dig deeper into their lives, but give them space to like suffer in ways that we cannot visually see.
I hear you, and I'm not saying that there aren't situations where it just becomes a part of discussion, like with Markelle Fultz. Like to me, that was kind of a valid thing to discuss, even if it was weird.
It was
Like,
kind of basketball.
Yeah, it was.
Right?
It was icky, but just this general leap to discussing someone's like confidence, their mental health, their clutchness. It feels like we've taken the "do you want it more" and like filtered it through the ideas of mental health, and almost like perverted what should be legitimate concerns about these players' mental health and used them as a proxy for like wanting it more and like being clutch and mentally tough and having balls.
Well, yeah, I think we're talking about two different corners of this discussion, because when Kevin Love goes negative 45 from the field and people roast him, I'm like, remember, not too long ago, he said he suffers from an affliction that affects his game, and he just went through COVID like we did. So if he doesn't look right on the court, we can speculate all we want, but remember, he told us that he feels a certain way. So like, yeah, he's negative 45 tonight. That is not good for someone who's supposed to be great. But like, yo, man, he told you, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's true, and I think we should have empathy for those guys. But one other thing that I think that's complicating the way that people interact is this newfound empathy we have for mental health, that we have for COVID, that we have for fellow man, that we have for the working class. And then there's our natural instincts just to like roast players.
I don't believe we actually have empathy. I believe we say we do, but nothing about anything says we actually do.
Well, it may not be real empathy. It may be performative empathy, but there are definitely more of those sort of obstacles to being a psycho sports fan than there were in the past. And I think that's a good thing, even if they're just, sociologically, culturally constructed, in the spaces that we discuss sports. I remember a few weeks ago when Ben Simmons was out, and this is a foul tweet, I'm just going to say it. It was like, why isn't Ben Simmons playing? It's like, he's like, Devin Booker is fucking Kendall Jenner while Ben Simmons has AIDS. And it was just so...
What the hell?
It was just so stupid and wildly inappropriate and offensive that it obviously stuck out like a sore thumb.
Some
And I feel like
shit.
and I feel like that's how a lot of sports discourse was like 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Without
That
it being
now-
on record, right?
Right. I just think that kind of absolute psychopath behavior as a fan has been largely removed, but now it's coded in different ways. It's coded through ways that are a little bit more acceptable.
Can you give an example, maybe?
Well, okay, so Ben Simmons played poorly, and the other people were like, oh, I think it's because something's going on with his family. They're like, well, are you being sympathetic to him or not? I can't tell. It was just, I don't know. I don't like the digging into people's mental motivations. I like looking at basketball and watching what's happening on the court and saying, this is how a player is being used. This is what the player is doing. He just happens to be off. I don't like the mental speculation element, because we say this all the time. You don't know what's in a player's head. We say this constantly. A guy's a free agent. Well, he's definitely going here. Oh, he does something totally different. We don't know what these guys are thinking. So imagining them like being upset about something and that's making their jump shot fall off, like I'd rather just steer clear of that entire debate.
Just a counterpoint that I think that's the great part of being a sports fan, just as a counterpoint, because the off-court stuff really peppers and flavors what we see. It's like the spice, right? Like when Shaq is a movie star, that makes him on the Lakers even more delicious, right? Because he's Shaq Fu and he has a video game and he enjoys performing. And I think like what we talk about with players off the court is like mythology and legend, right? And I love
all that shit. I'm talking specifically about like mental health, personal issues, and then using those to ascribe like why someone's playing a certain way.
Yeah.
Like I just dislike that. The outside stuff on the court, yeah, sure. I mean, as you said, these guys are superheroes. Their personalities are built both on the court and off. I mean, I'm with you on that part. I'm just saying I dislike the armchair psychologist element of sports, and I think I preferred it more when it was done in the he doesn't want it enough, because it was so
Interesting.
transparently bullshit, as to when it's now coached through like the like vernacular of sympathy, of empathy, of mental health care.
Yo, Ron Artest is a really influential player. And when he said after the Lakers, after you hit that big shot and the Lakers won that playoff game, or even that series, I believe, he was like, shout out to my therapist, right? And I thought that was such a huge moment, because his story is peppered by big QBC energy, Big Noid, Mobb Deep, all those guys. Like, he is a famously interesting person outside of hoops, but also a famously introverted person in his personal life. And he's famously introverted, and then he let us in a little bit, being like, yo, I have anger issues. I'm not mentally the same as you. I'm not necessarily depressed, but I'm angry. I have all these things and I'm getting better. And look, I'm a champion now. So what do you have to say about that? And I thought that was so interesting, right? And I agree with you. Sometimes it gets a bit coded, like everything. And we love codes, right? Like, it's what you say or what you meant to say. We always talk about that. And sometimes when people talk about athletes, I'm like, yo, that's kind of dark. And those words aren't necessarily dark, but where you're going is a really dark place. And it is a bit boring to say, like, well, DeMar DeRozan is not going to make the playoffs this year because his heart's not in it, and that's okay. Like, that's extremely boring in terms of, like, hot take-itude, right? It's easier to say, like, he's weak. And that's
right, but I'm saying I also just don't believe that at all. I don't believe that DeMar DeRozan says, well, I've struggled with depression. And I think we can say that sucks, and, we can keep that in mind. But I also don't think we can say, well, DeRozan was bad this year, but it's okay because he had depression. I just think we should separate those two things.
It's so hard, right?
Because we just don't know. I think we can say, hey, DeMar DeRozan played really well when the Spurs used him as a power forward. That was a cool surprise. Or he's never been that great of a shooter, and this year he didn't get to the line as much. I don't want to say he didn't get into the line as much because he was depressed. He had insomnia. He wasn't sleeping as well, because I don't know until he tells us. If he says, you know what, I couldn't sleep all year, I had an eating disorder, I did these things, I'm like, oh shit. But I don't want to say, we know that he has had, publicly expressed issues with mental health, and therefore I'm just going to say, well, whatever he does happens, and I'm going to say he's overcome it to play well, or it's holding him back from being the superstar that he could be. I just have no interest in conflating those two things.
I think this is all really interesting because, in my opinion, we're barreling towards a takeless sports world, and maybe world in general. But, there's a website that's like bad takes resurfaced or whatever. They dig up bad takes. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, a lot of these aren't that bad. And that's cop-ass behavior, and don't do that. But, like, a lot of these aren't bad. And I watched a YouTube video yesterday, and it was critics deserve, RJ deserves an apology from his critics. And I'm like, no, he doesn't. What are you talking about? And then the video went on to show that how much better he got, fair. How much he's helped the Knicks win this year, fair. And I'm like, no one deserves any apology because he's still a reasonably bad player. And it's depending on your starting point. And the starting point for this vlogger was he was bad last year. The starting point for me is he was historically bad last year. So getting better doesn't really do much, but like, eventually you're going to be right about a sports take, and eventually you're going to be wrong. You just have to stick to the same story, which is boring in itself. And I think we're just hurtling towards a place where hot takes will just seem like contrarianism, but contrarianism is baked into being a sports fan. So I think when we lose that, we lose something cool.
I don't think we're going to lose hot takes because there's such a population of like normal non-media people who are willing to say whatever that comes into their mind because they don't have any like stakes in it. They're not going to get exposed. Yeah. But then you also have some people in the media whose sole purpose is hot takes.
Keith McNally. Yeah.
Right. And those people in generally, it's more of like a personality thing. It's more of their brand is, dropping hot takes. I think for the most part, if we're talking about basketball, it isn't a lot of hot takes on like the sort of conventional like media level. Most people are kind of like pretty conservative, I think.
Dude, I love Officer Shaq. I think on Tuesday he was on TNT with D Wade, your boy D Wade, and Candace Parker. And Shaq, I think, is an entertainer, and he's always been. He's never been shy about that. But he posed the question as the Clippers were playing that night: is Paul George running out of steam? Is he choking yet again towards the end of a season? And Candace Parker was like, are you fucking serious? We're going to waste our time with this. And she just like shut him down. No, he's not running out of gas. He's playing better than ever. He may be a top player in the league. At that point in their conversation, he was 4 for 6 from the field. She was like, I don't know where you're getting this from other than a feeling, other than this Twitter-ass vibe of like playoff P, right? And like, is that his nickname, playoff P?
Yeah.
And I kind of wanted her to pull in the reins a little bit, to like pull back the dogs, because I'm like, let Shaq do his thing. This is funny. Most of us kind of think this way. Me and you don't, but like, this is entertaining, so we don't have to correct him. But I do, to your point, like, of course, as soon as we get to a point where we kind of all agree on something, someone's incentivized to disagree, and then that person gets clout and whatever. People to his bistro, whatever.
But also, one of the things that I think in basketball that's important is if you're saying things that are plainly obvious, people are still going to disagree with you sometimes.
Like
but
Russell Westbrook's good.
Right, that's a good example, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think this is not to say that we're right all the time. We're wrong constantly. But earlier this year, we're like, well, why is everyone dogging Russell Westbrook? The conventional approach to Westbrook was that Westbrook sucks. He's like this toxic loser to have in your team, and he's going to, like, why would you ever want, like, Russ to be a part of your organization? And we're like, this has gone too far.
Yeah.
And it's just this complete reversal of conventional wisdom from a few years ago that we kind of bristled at when he was MVP for triple doubles. And we're like, well, yeah, but
efficiency.
Who cares so much about that?
Right.
And it's not just being like Gen X contrarians here. It's also that conventional wisdom is usually not totally right. Or if it's right temporarily. And then it becomes wrong. It's never shifting exactly at the right moment. So if you were a conventional wisdom person, especially in basketball, you might think you're progressive, which is weird. But maybe actually that could how be it works. But I only think about it this much in basketball, to be honest. So like, if you were someone who says modern basketball, pace and space, 3-pointers, that's how you win. You are understanding conventional basketball. But you can see someone like Shaq and say, well, I'm not him. That guy's a dinosaur. He's the past, I'm the future. But it's not true. You are mainstream. You are middle of the pack. You are completely conventional. And Shaq is a dinosaur. You know what I'm saying? There's this weird dynamic in basketball where you still have the presence and platform of people with completely archaic boomer philosophies, which makes people who are kind of conservative and very mainstream think that they are on like the vanguard of basketball thought. And my only thing I'm going to say about the Sixers, though, in this episode, is that I think this is why you see such resistance from people who like Sam Hinkie, people who like Daryl Morey, and then they say, well, you can't put Ben Simmons at the 5. How would you play defense?
Right.
Like, but that's the most conventional way of thinking about defense, thinking about how you can use players that you could possibly like assemble. That you couldn't put a 6'11" defensive player of the year candidate at center and still be able to defend the court. How would that ever work? But these are guys who view themselves as like progressive basketball heads, but they aren't. They are completely mainstream. So I think basketball in general is fascinating because you still have the presence of people who are like the Shaqs. And I'm really glad that you have someone like Candace Parker there who can just, bring the meat axe out when it's time to take down those boomer takes.
Well, her and Shaq are geniuses in different regards, and I think we talked about this one time. Like, Shaq's genius is so apparent, but it may not be in his analysis. He's a genius in his experience and his understanding of the game. So when he says something simple like, "Yo, if I was on the court with Paul George, I don't fear him," and I'm like, "Can you talk to me about that for an hour? Because your words are insanely what's the right word, I don't know, there's an insight there, insightful, but Candace Parker is kind of scholarly, right? And she has all the on-court smarts that Shaq does, but she's more aligned towards something I enjoy, which is just like, let's not waste our time with the stuff that we figured out. Let's talk about the stuff that is developing before our eyes. So when you want to talk, when we want to watch a game and talk about how the Clippers could face certain opponents in the playoffs coming up, understanding their deficiencies and Ibaka's injury and all that, and Shaq is like, is Paul George running out of gas? She's like, why are you pumping the brakes on this? Let's keep on going, right? Which I do appreciate too, but I kind of love the Shaqness of the world as well, because he's not done thinking about it. He's still curious, right?
There's also an interesting dynamic with Shaq and the big guys, because obviously their physical stature plays such a huge role in them being a superstar, and that includes all their physical gifts that come with height. This isn't just saying they are tall, therefore they are great. They are tall and strong and athletic and nimble and mobile and coordinated, all those things. But I'm like, Shaq, who did you fear? No one. Like, did you fear a single person?
Yeah.
Like, you were Shaquille O'Neal. Like, how would you fear anybody? I mean, maybe he feared Jordan. Maybe he feared Iverson. Maybe he feared Kobe. But overall, like, who is Shaq gonna fear? Right. He's like 7'1", 300 pounds, and unstoppable. Like, yeah, Shaq's heart pumping Kool-Aid out there when he sees, I don't know, Michael Adams, the short king. But at the same time, big guys' experiences also get devalued. And I think there was an article about Patrick Ewing talking about how it's harder for centers to get jobs because of a few different factors that were discussed. One is that even in the huddle, having a coach that like stares down at like your superstar players is a little bit weird. And the other one was that they don't view centers as being cerebral because they're in the post, because they're huge and tall, etc. All the traits that I just described. Meanwhile, sort of the brain of the team
point guard. The
white
point guard. Steve Nash.
White point guard, but even white guys for sure, but also the Mark Jacksons and the Doc Rivers and Steve Nashes, Tyrone Lue. The point guard is the one who becomes the coach. And we see this even today. There was a clip of TJ McConnell chatting up, and everyone's like, oh my God, he's basically already a head coach.
player coach TJ. Yeah, totally. There's that bias, sort of like the SATs were written for like a white male in the workforce, right? And it measures, coaching in the NBA is measured by these point guards that came before it, which is interesting, right? Because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has famously not gotten a job as a head coach in the NBA because he's a little too smart, right? Like, he has opinions and he's kind of isolated himself from traditional thinkers around the NBA, and people don't like him. Bill Russell, also thoughtful. He has thoughts outside of the BMM, and it's interesting to see. I mean, physically, it's so interesting, right? Like, players don't appreciate a coach towering down on them because it's threatening and not nurturing. And Van Gundy is a very small man who's a very successful Jeff Van Gundy. I always thought that was an awkward optic because the 94 Knicks respected Jeff Van Gundy so much because he literally took punches for them, literally, or kicks from Alonzo Mourning. But you had these guys like Charles Oakley, Patrick Ewing, and Anthony Mason hanging on his... Oh, that was Riley. I'm talking about 99, right? But you had these guys hanging on his every word. And it's like, I always thought, I don't know what a perfect coach looks like, but it's definitely part of the equation, right?
It's something that I had never really considered until reading that article. And I want to say it was Chris Herring in 538, but I could be wrong. So maybe I'm off. But they talked about Patrick Ewing and they talked about the stature. I had never considered how a coach looks, but maybe this even goes into that sort of same kind of phrenology-esque studies where they say that certain facial features are smart.
Total bullshit. But yeah, I mean,
This guy just looks like he knows hoops.
yeah, people always think I'm good at like doing the tip after dinner because of my glasses and my Asianness, and I'm like, trust me, I am as lost as you are, man. But I have this smartphone, so I'll do it.
Look at this guy's eyes darting everywhere. Now that guy can coach. He sees the whole game. He sees the floor. His peripheral vision is crazy.
Which is interesting because I don't think TJ McConnell would be a bad coach. I like the way he thinks on the court. Sure. Whatever.
I'm not saying I don't buy into it. I looked at him like, he will be a great coach. He'll be fantastic. Coach's son, floor slapper.
It's interesting who we anoint as post-NBA stars, right? Like Jared Dudley, TJ McConnell, basically people who are good with the media. And I don't know. Why can't it be DeMarcus Cousins? Like, I don't know, because maybe he bristles at the whole profession, but
we don't know
the
that.
media. Yeah, we don't know that, but the way he talks to the media, I'm like, oh, he doesn't like them more than someone who loves talking to the media, that's for sure. But I lament Clyde Frazier kind of losing a step this year, and to me it's very apparent that he's a little slow, and Mike Breen, like the king he is, makes up for him and saves him constantly. But it's kind of this melancholy thing watching this team finally be good, and Clyde is a little off his game, and he should be. He's a king. He's been doing this for eons, but who's most prepared to paint this picture of the game for us? Because without Mike Breen, like, my experience of the Knicks would be so different, and Clyde, right?
They're great. On April 1st, I saw someone repost a clip of the Knicks practical joke.
Oh, when he was coming back?
Clyde was coming back. It holds up. It's still really, really good.
It's like, Clyde, you coming back? Like, yeah, man.
It's him warming up in the gym and talking about how, he looked pretty good while practicing, so he's going to, go for it on a 10-day contract.
Yeah.
I think that's what they said. And they talked to, other members of the coaching staff. And, like, the best part is, I think Scott Brooks was on the Knicks at the time. At the end, he's just, like, really resentful. Like, Clyde is coming for his playing time. And just, like, great acting. Like, really, really strong acting. Just crushes it.
Yeah,
it's on YouTube if you want to see it. Really funny. But all that to say, yes, Clyde rules. I hear you on his reduced capacity. Mm-hmm. I also say let him do it into the grave. For
sure. Yeah, we talked about this. Like, Chick Hearn asked this thing. I think it's really heartwarming, and I'm glad we have it. Sort of like we talked about last time, Phil Rizzuto was kind of saved by his partners, and it made for a really touching kind of experience. And with Breen, you find him talking about, like, color more. Now they're talking about stories about them eating dinner after games, or like desserts at Clyde's Wine and Dine, and Clyde brightens up because Breen knows him so well. And he's like, oh yeah, we have a new dessert, Mike. I'll bring one for you. And he's like, I love your restaurant. Could we go there after the game? He's like, you're always welcome at Clyde's Wine and Dine. And it's so sweet, but it's changing. Time is undefeated, Ben.
Sure is, Quo. I mean, and we're almost out of time, but before time defeats us, and the perfect podcast. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about a team that is not so secured in its playoff destiny as the New York Knicks.
Oh.
And by that, I'm talking about the Los Angeles Lakers.
What in the world?
Awooga. So the Lakers right now are in the 6th spot in the West, and I want to say they're virtually tied for this with I think Portland for the 7th seed. Portland's got Nurkic back. They're playing pretty well. They've had some losses lately, but maybe they're not playing well. I don't know. Whatever the case is, they are tied with the Lakers for the 7th spot. And if you fall into that 7th spot in the West, that means that you are not guaranteed a seat at the 8-team table for the postseason.
Things done change in the NBA, man. It's wild. Like, so a few weeks ago, Mark Cuban was furious when, the Mavs look kind of stabilized and they're out of the play-in. But a few weeks ago when they were kind of shaky, he was like, I don't know why we have to deal with a one and done. Like, we're a legit 7th seed in the NBA, and we're going to lose so much revenue if we just have one bad night. It's like, this is ridiculous. And then LeBron James, your boy, last week was like, now that he's kind of in the play-in, because before he was into the play-in. Now that he's in the play-in, he's out on the play-in.
Oh, sorry. I don't like 17th Wave Ska.
Listen, LeBron, we're in the triple digit Ska at this point. But I hear LeBron. Yo, he changed his mind because now he has a short end of the stick. This is just how it goes. And I think he was right both times. I think the play-in is really fun, and there will be eyes on that. And now that you're in the play-in, like, this is some bullshit. I'm like, you're also correct.
You're a hypocrite. Well, it meant different things to me.
Yeah. It's like,
what do you want?
Yeah.
You asked me my opinion when we were the champions.
Yeah.
Now you're asking me when I'm a play-in team. Of course my opinion is different.
dude, yeah. At least he's telling the truth both times,
Previously, I thought we'd be able to play perhaps like the 10th best team in the conference in the first round.
Yeah.
Now it looks as if we might not make the playoffs at all. No, I disagree. Don't like it anymore. You bastard.
Yeah. So, yeah, he came out with some heated words like someone should get fired. And, this has been a discussion this week on Twitter or sports radio, which is you see a lot of these teams either threatening getting, like the Lakers might get bounced, and they're a very beloved team that we all kind of, even if we're haters, they're villains we kind of want to see get beat in like a resounding way versus the Clippers or something. Not just like having a bad night where LeBron's ankle is busted. Like, all these stories shaping up going into the playoffs will be fine and will be fun, but there are complaints that this isn't the product that we had before and we tinkered with it too much.
Where are you on the Lakers playing and them losing it? I have
Fuck
very
'em.
mixed feelings on that because,
'em.
for one,
Yeah.
I hear you. For one, I love LeBron James. I would like to see him.
The GOAT, yeah.
I'd like to see him go to another finals. As a Sixers fan, I'd like to see, him play against the Sixers or perhaps the Knicks in the finals.
Woo!
But, I like LeBron. I don't want him getting ousted because of the volume of bullshit about Michael Jordan never would have lost in the play-in game.
Nice.
I can't deal with it. Yeah. But they are the Lakers, so fuck them.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Like, I think more LeBron in our lives is better, especially as we're seeing him finally maybe declining. I want more LeBron. I want the present to overpower the past Jordan originalism, I want new stories, and LeBron still is a new story. And but that said, I see that gold and purple, man. And like, my villainy of the Lakers isn't necessarily their culture. It's the poor job that Pelinka did, guised as a good job that Pelinka did. He was gifted these two clutch management players, mm-hmm. and he did a really bad job of surrounding them with help. And before the season, the chatter was he should automatically win GM of the year because somehow they got Marc Gasol, champion from the year prior. They got your boy Montrezl Harrell, who wants it more, who I kind of grown to really love. Wes Matthews, 3-and-D specialist, amazing job. And they kind of, without them, they're relegated, right? Without the two big dogs.
Well, look, they are, of course, relegated without Anthony Davis and LeBron James. Yes, sure.
They didn't have to be. They could have gotten Serge Ibaka. That was a good player.
No, they could. Oh, I agree. I'm saying, but without question, yes, they are a extraordinarily top-heavy team. That's true. But I don't think they've done a great job, despite the fact that they have this built-in advantage of having a championship caliber team, having LeBron James, and being in Los Angeles. You know, it's there's only a couple teams that can get Marc Gasol to come there and play for nothing, and they're one of them.
True.
You know, and I think Marc Gasol's been pretty decent with them.
Yeah.
I would also say that there are other moves. You know, Drummond, yes, of course you take him for nothing. Drummond has not been good at all. And, you know, you scoffed at that move, and I didn't like it because of it. It just felt like salary cap tomfoolery. But Drummond has not been good for them. He doesn't fit well with some of their other players. I don't think they necessarily play Marc Gasol enough, but he's also kind of washed.
He's as old as Obi Toppin, man. You can't play that. There's too much malarkey with him on the court.
I mean, Caruso, I don't think plays quite enough. I think he's better
decent.
than other guys they have. That Danny Green trade for Schroeder does not look good in retrospect. I think the problem that people make when they have guys who are like LeBron James and Anthony Davis is they try to surround them with guys who do stuff. Like, yeah, Kuzma, he'll be good there. Yeah. Schroeder, we need guys who do things. No, you don't. I mean, guys who do nothing.
But,
guys
you know,
who
Marc
stand around
Gasol
in one
and Wes,
spot and knock down threes.
how do you explain Wes Matthews, who just kind of, he's like a set shooter, right?
Yeah.
I just think they got the wrong dudes.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, yeah. I mean, Wes Matthews had a good season last year when he was playing next to Giannis. But, I mean, this is a guy who was, 34, 35 years old. We thought he was washed 3 years ago. I mean, the Knicks got him at, like, the deadline.
Oh, yeah,
it was like
Knicks
a salary
legend.
salary dump. There was no reason to necessarily suspect that he would continue to keep giving good minutes. This is a guy who came back from an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
So, to your point, they flipped out Danny Green and brought in Wes Matthews, and that was not a good move.
No. The construction of this team didn't have to be this way.
They have a bad GM.
They have a bad GM. Yeah,
their GM sucks.
Yeah, and they're Jeannie Buss I think was really proud of those moves, and the ownership. They won an Asterisk championship. I want to see if LeBron and AD can win a real one this year.
I mean, I think LeBron and AD are phenomenal players. I do wonder if the Heat were healthy last year, if they would have won that series.
Oh, yeah.
The healthy Heat, if Bam had played every game and Dragic had been there, that Heat team was not that great, but they might have beaten the Lakers.
I 1,000% agree, and it sucks because the end of the season happens at the end, and everyone's worn out, especially during a pandemic. I was thinking, I was thinking about things that they should change in the NBA. First of all, MVP voting should happen every 2 weeks so you don't have recency bias, and it's an accumulative thing. And also, listen to this. What if we had a mid-season championship? So the season started in the middle and went over towards the next season. It's ridiculous and awesome.
When's the All-Star game?
You could put, how about the middle, but end of the calendar season?
Is it the beginning or the end? It's both.
Yeah, because I say that because the Nets are hobbling into, and injuries can happen at any time. I know this, but wear and tear, biometrics, we know the more the players practice and play, the more likely they are to injury eventually. The Nets not being at full strength sucks.
It does. I don't know statistically if there's been more injuries this year than in seasons past. No, that's not. It might not be true. It's going to go up and down, sort of like climate change, right? Right, but I do think when you add in COVID protocols, that adds just a huge amount of other missed games. Then you had games that were canceled just because someone on one team had entered protocol and had been around other teammates. Cool, no games this week for you guys.
Yeah.
So there were far more absences and missing players and resting. But I think part of it was coincidentally. I mean, there was a lot of injuries, but coincidentally, Brooklyn and the Lakers. But Brooklyn most of all. And you're like, well, Kyrie gets hurt a lot. And Durant gets hurt a lot and is coming back from the most serious injury possible. And Harden just kind of got hurt.
Yeah, that was bad luck.
The Nets are the main issue here. If the Nets had been intact this whole time, I don't think there'd be this simmering discontent. But I get it. As a Sixers fan, they've played the Nets and they've never played against these guys.
Yeah.
You're like, come on, man. We're going through this schedule, plowing along, and all right, here come the Nets, and it's just like TLC and
Joe Harris,
the beautiful lad with the golden hair in the walking bucket, Joe Harris. Like, come on, man. Yeah. I looked at this on the schedule 2 weeks ago and said, here we go.
Yeah.
The stars will come out to shine at Barclays.
Yeah.
And then it's just Joe Harris walking bucketing.
I mean, what is the product of the NBA? Because, I really enjoy teams who don't want acceptability and are gunning for a championship. And who knows, maybe the Nets are like, Kyrie's actually healthy, KD's actually healthy, but we're going to hold them out because it looks like we're going to get into the playoffs out of the play-in, and we're just going to play them when it counts, and we're going to win this championship right before your eyes, But then they might never play Simmons and Embiid, judging on based on how the brackets go, right?
Yeah, I mean, at this current state, it looks like the Bucks and Brooklyn would meet before either of them played Philly.
That sucks, yeah.
The Bucks are a tough team. I mean, that is the benefit of getting the number one seed in the East this year, and it's worth playing your guys to get that. Only having to beat one of those teams who are both very good is a huge advantage. I mean, if you have to beat the Celtics or Miami in the first round, and then you play the Bucks or Brooklyn, and then you play the Sixers or whoever, that's a pretty rugged route out of the East. Yeah. Not to say that you shouldn't want to play the Hawks or the Wizards or whatever, but there is foreseeably a gnarly ass route if you're a good team in the East. That can be avoided.
Yeah, you don't want that Knicks smoke. So I think every team is just trying to avoid that Taj tornado.
Just stay out of that 5 slot.
You don't want it. They say you don't want it. But yeah, I mean, LeBron, it's interesting to see. It will be interesting to see LeBron age from here on out, right? Aside the other things, legacy, performance, load management, all that. But what kind of, since he's GM LeBron, what kind of teams is he going to construct knowing he's in his decline? Because I think he constructed this team with that kind of in the back of his head. He always wants the best players with him, regardless. But will he look at Pelinka and be like, yo, you got Montrezl Harrell? How does that help me? You can't use him in the playoffs, Why didn't you keep Rondo? All these things, I wonder what he's going to do as a GM, as an agent, and as a player moving forward.
Even thinking about LeBron, say, losing in the first round kind of made me sad, even after I laughed about the Lakers losing. I'm like, well, LeBron might only have 2-3 seasons left.
It's a possibility he might be quickly over.
And for him to have this season that he was abbreviated to begin with, that he missed a lot of time with injury, and then to not get him in the playoffs, that would suck. That would suck. I almost have to retract it, even though I still am like,
look at Lakers fan, day one Lakers culture over here.
I just love being draped in that purple and gold. I just love the entire Lakers exceptionalism. They deserve it. Is what it is. Yeah. The Laker fans have been so great that they deserve a LeBron championship.
Yo, Space Jam 2 looks awesome. Admit it. What we've seen, I don't know. Let me rephrase that because that was rude. Do you think Space Jam 2 looks awesome?
I saw the trailer, and it was sheer chaos.
Yeah. I thought it was, I like the cartoonification of Klay Thompson, Anthony Davis. I just love the art direction of all that, and it's big and colorful. It looks like Ready Player One, but with hoops, and it's going to have all these meta jokes in it where Sonic the Hedgehog will show up, and I don't know. It looks like. Did you see Spider-Man the animated multiverse movie?
Yeah, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, wasn't that fun? Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping kind of a tenor, that really cracked out Ren and Stimpy on acid thing.
The trailer had that vibe.
I mean, okay. So I want to get to this, but it's too bad it's at the end of the episode, because Space Jam kind of represents an idea to me that I'm sorry.
We can save it.
Okay, let's save it.
Because to me, there's stuff to talk about next episode, like 22nd Wave Ska and Space Jam.
Wow.
And Boston being a play-in team. Whoa.
Wow.
There's some delightful stuff. Like, I feel like we can save this perfection and then top it next season.
We should
next
put
week.
together our all NBA hated first team too. That would be fun.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna do that, and that will be perfect.
More perfect than this one?
Well, yes, but this one right now is the perfect pod.
Okay, I can't argue with that.
I love
Cookies.
cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.